SaaS Backwards is sponsored by Austin Lawrence Group, specializing in demand gen for SaaS. It sure is noisy. I deleted 100 emails from vendors just this morning. Your buyer has gotten better at ignoring you, and you're gonna need a big idea if you want to cut through all that clutter. Austin Lawrence is just the right agency to help you find it. So if your campaigns are falling on deaf eyeballs, let's talk. Visit austinlawrence.com today and let's build something bigger.
Welcome to the SaaS Backwards podcast, where we reverse engineer the success of fast-growing SaaS firms and explore strategies CMOs and CEOs are using to drive their businesses forward.
Welcome to SaaS Backwards, a podcast that helps SaaS CEOs and CMOs to accelerate growth and enhance profitability. Our guest today is Jeremy Toeman, founder and CEO of Augex Labs, an AI video startup helping creators make compelling videos at a fraction of the time and effort. Hey, Jeremy, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Ken. Great to be here.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this one. This is a great topic. But before we dig in, could you just tell me a little bit about yourself and your company?
Absolutely. I'll do the short version. I've been in the tech and media convergence sector my entire career now, spanning companies as large as CBS Interactive and Warner Media, as small as two-person startups you literally never heard of. A couple of interesting products I've worked on along the way include the Sling Box, the first ever live TV streaming box. Built the first whole home media system with a company called Pioneer, which is more known for car stereos these days. I also helped launch startups like Sonos, Waze, Voodoo, and others. And I've been at Augex Labs now for just over 2 years, basically trying to solve the problem for small, medium, large business, everybody who's got to make more video, which is sort of everybody, trying to give them tools to do that, that anyone in business can use so that we leave the pro video creation services to the pros, but basically anyone who's untrained on professional video editing to be able to at least make a message happen, whether that's a simple ad, a simple promo, a highlight reel, explainer video, that basic stuff. So that's what we're doing here at Augie.
Hey, that's awesome. And I'm a big Sonos fan. So thank you for making my home audio and theater experience so seamless. I appreciate that work for sure.
That credit has to go to that team. I helped them, but they were one of the best product teams I've ever worked with. And I agree, by the way, I've been a Sonos home for quite some years now.
It's great stuff. Let's jump in. You know, it's not easy to found and grow a startup. And as I mentioned to you before, you know, it's a lot here on the podcast about trying to help people understand challenges and solutions kind of thing, you know, things that didn't always go as planned. And I'm wondering if you could talk about some of the challenges you faced in the early days of Augex and how you overcame them.
No challenges at all, just been a cakewalk. I can't even say it with a straight face. I would say the biggest struggle I've experienced on this startup was trying to fundraise in one of the toughest fundraising climates we've seen. And for those who don't see me, I got the gray hairs and not that many left of them. And so in my time here in the tech industry, I think the only thing I'd compare 2023 to would probably be 2000, 2001, post the original .com collapse. And so we were out raising our Series Seed. For those who don't do fundraising, that's sort of the second round of funding. Pre-seed is like maybe your friends or family or what you might hear of as angel investors. And then your seed round is more institutional investors, larger checks, et cetera. And you really have to have your act together for that. And I often describe it as a time where both parties have a square box and a square hole, and they both have to fit just right to make something happen. And so in a time of extreme chaos, it was not the easiest time to make all those things happen.
What was the secret for you guys to fundraise into that environment? Because you're absolutely right. I've been active since before that time as well. And this certainly has been tough for some categories, sure.
It was a very bumpy road, I'll be honest. I think the learnings along the way, if I have to start with one word, it's stamina, right? You're going to get defeat. You're going to get setbacks. You're going to get a lot of rejection, a lot of no's. I think my no counted at something like, I want to say about 170. Now, I had a bit of an unusual fundraise because not only is it just generally a hard process, I did it while two different major things were occurring in the world. So the first one being when we were out fundraising was when ChatGPT launched. So you can imagine as a founder, if a thing that, for lack of a better phrase, changed the world overnight launches, the VCs take notice and they have to change their theory and how they approach the world. So that happened literally when we were getting our first term sheet was the ChatGPT launch. The second major thing that happened for us was a little bank in Silicon Valley went under, and not so little and not such a, I'm underplaying that, but that happened again at the exact same time we were expecting our term sheet. So, your typical fundraise process is maybe, if you're doing great, 3 to 4 weeks. If you're taking a little longer, it's a couple months. Ours took almost 9 months because we had to restart 2.5 times, I would say. So stamina, I'll come back to it. This is the long haul for anyone trying to get something off the ground.
That's really interesting, and I feel bad for you. But at the same time, as you look back on it and others you meet in the future look back on that, that's also a good story to tell, right? To be able to tell to future investors, stakeholders that you had these two unplanned for and unplannable externalities, right? And yet managed to get to significant fundraise on the seed round. So I think that's a really good thing. So stamina and belief in what you're doing. Stamina has to be based on something. So you have to really believe also in the company you're trying to fund.
I think that's well said. You have to have a lot of that sort of deep-seated belief that you're doing the thing that you believe in, and be comfortable. My only advice to this is, look, I don't know how often Mike Tyson gets quoted on this podcast, but I love a Mike Tyson quote, and I will share it, which is, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face. And he's talking, I don't know anything about boxing, but apparently even in boxing, you have a lot of planned moves of when you'll do certain things. And so what I would say to any startup founder is, you need to know that something's going to happen that you can't count on, right? There's some external random event, could be competitive, could be something that's directly about you, could be a shift in the industry, right? Whenever the new phones come out, we see dozens of startups sort of meet their demise when the next version of iOS just does the thing that a whole startup used to do. So advice, have your sort of backup plan, have longevity ready, assume it's not going to work out right the first time. And then also, don't take that stuff personally, y'all. Like, there's no amount of planning that anyone could have made for me to say the single largest bank in your industry will fail the same week you get a VC to tell you you're getting a term sheet. Like, that just doesn't happen, but it does, right? So recognize, like, oh gosh, it's like a tornado ripped through your hometown. Nobody wants it. Might have been cool to look at for a half hour, but nobody wants that. So give yourself the room to say, okay, I'm going to have to shake this off, get the dust off myself. My needs, my business, my startup, those things didn't necessarily change, but the situation around me did.
I actually want to go back and talk about what led you to this. Founding is a lot different than being brought in as CEO.
Sure.
Right? It's a different journey, different mindset. So what was it that led you to found the company? What about your prior experience or things you'd learned?
The experience to start the company was actually very personal. I was a podcaster. I like to joke it was during the pandemic, so I had to become a podcaster because I didn't know how to make bread. And so I was doing a podcast with a good buddy of mine, and we were having fun. It was just about movies. We got into it, and we were trying to grow it a little bit. And one of the things I kept reading was the importance of a video trailer. Make a little video, put it on YouTube or TikTok or Insta, and you'll go get new listeners from there because that's where a lot of podcasters hang out. I said, well, that should be a no-brainer. I've got access to all the tools. Let's go make a little fun video here. And my co-host and I, we recorded a little narration, and we went off to make a video. I spent 40 plus hours trying to learn the tools, got nowhere, and basically started to ask the question of, why is video creation so hard? And did a lot of research and started talking to a lot of people. And it turned out that about 70% of US businesses today, not 2 years ago, but today, don't make or have the capacity to make videos to promote their own business more than once a year. I think the last number I read was 3.7 million videos are uploaded every day just to YouTube alone. Forget the rest. And we have the bulk of the US business class not using that medium very effectively. So all of these things pointed together in my head is we have a very hard problem. We have a huge untapped market. There's a lot of money in this category, right? Those are all key things. I don't have to go figure out where might the money flow come from. We know marketers spend money on advertising. We know every business needs some form of marketing plan. So by being able to know that we're close to the money flow, close to a stated need, and close to a effectively open market, we knew that this was a good space to go into. January 2022, started the official company, wrangled my co-founders to leaving what they were doing, and off we went.
That's really interesting. And I think you also might have had some other parallel companies that could give you some courage, like Canva, providing that kind of underlayment of support for people that don't want to spend too much on art direction, right? They're not looking for a creative director.
That's exactly right. We look at Canva as the perfect analog, not because of what our product does and what their product does, but because of the exact type of problem it solves in the market. For Canva, it was, I need to promote content, simple logos, simple banners, simple graphics, simple posters, simple whatever, to help my business grow on Instagram, Snapchat, my website, etc. And Canva exploded from there. We see the same is true in video. And even though Canva actually has a video product, and it's quite a good one, we believe we're solving a very different problem, which is that still, where do you start, right? The biggest thing we've learned along the way about making video and what so many people struggle with is the blank canvas effect, right? So what was so great in Canva? Templates, right? Templates helped you understand this is what a poster should look like. We're doing very similar analogies. We automatically build storyboards for our users based on their script so that they don't have to figure out what should this look like. They actually have a starting point that they can build from.
It's really interesting. We're seeing Canva augment the professional design work that we might bring in. And I wouldn't say that we miss the work that it replaces. As a service, we don't really miss that work. The seventh variation of a postcard for a channel partner. There's very few creative people that want to keep doing those over and over and over again. So empowering the creative teams on the client side, I think, is actually, in many cases, a real help. And likewise on video, we have clients that'll do the $30,000 or $50,000 professional production once, and then they're quiet on video for a year or more. So there's a huge gap here in being able to communicate more effectively. So I think your product market fit sounds pretty good to me. Not that you asked.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, you pointed out something really key is that you think about going to a company and saying, look, and we know, and and we know, you need to make video. Like everybody, there's no secret there. What kind of video should you make is a good question. And that's where the money starts happening, is that most companies right there, like, we should make video. We should be on our advisor, our board. Someone said we should be on video. You listen to this podcast and Ken Jeremy told you get on video, right? So the problem is, where do you start? And if you're looking at it through traditional lenses, you go do a couple of Google searches or wherever you go, and you're going to find out, starting point, truth be told, you can get away with a $1,500 ad and get going. But if you're anywhere higher goals than that, you're going to be spending 8, 30, 50K, and maybe have a few minutes of final footage to use, as you said, for the whole year. We want to actually change the way you think so that you can use Augie every day, every week, whatever you need, whatever your pace is. And then when you're going to spend that money, you can use Augie to make effectively prototypes of what your final shot might look like. So A, you don't spend as much money as you would have spent in the past. And B, you don't have to spend as many times doing iterations. We actually have pro video teams that use Augie so they can show a client, we want to make a video kind of like this, but before we spend 1 second shooting footage, here's an idea, right? And so that's how we're trying to change that game. So again, you brought up Canva, and we think about it very similar as it's the same work nobody wants to do, right? Nobody wants to make that first rough cut of a video. No video pro, no one, right? So by doing that undesirable task and fairly time-consuming one, we free up the business people to focus on their needs, and we free up the pro editors to focus on theirs. We sit that hidden that sweet spot in the middle.
Awesome. Let's talk a little bit about bumps in the road here. We had the financing bump, and that was obviously, it's a major victory, right, in the life of a young company to raise a first significant fundraise. Where else have you maybe had challenges that seemed more difficult and yet you got through them? I believe that getting to become an overnight success takes a lot of hard work, and those stories don't always get told. So if you don't mind sharing a couple of things that, would benefit other founders to learn from you, that'd be great.
Absolutely. I'll give the other thing, as I mentioned, that launched while we've been running this company was ChatGPT. When we started this company, doing anything with AI was a real specialty. So when we started this company, A, we had a special talent set that many did not have. And B, all over startup land, the barriers to entry were simply higher than they are now. Right now, if you and I have a clever idea with not too much effort, we can probably get something in some scrappy format. So by the ChatGPT launch, the LLM revolution, whatever we're calling this era, the AI models and the ability to code and do all the things with them, computer vision, et cetera, really lowered the barriers of entry into the video editing space. When we started, there were maybe 3-4 little startups all fighting for the same turf. Now I would say there's probably like 40 plus. So you never really want that to happen in your startup journey. I think the idea of lots of competition showing up and the barrier being low wasn't great. I would argue that because of the time investment we made prior to all of that, we were able to keep ourselves moving further and faster than most. But from a pure noise factor, not great. 4 different startups using almost the same slogan we wanted to use, right? Like it's, everybody out there using variations of words. And what's everybody promising? Easier, faster, better. How do you differentiate in that space? You have to get very explicit. So what it's done for us, first, instead of looking at it like, oh, woe is us, lots of problems, the first thing we started doing is, what new things could we start doing because this technology now exists that we wouldn't have been thinking about doing or planning to do in our own? So one example is AI script writing and AI voices. Originally in our product, you would upload either a webcam recording or like an MP3, this narration, and we would use that to build your video. Now you can start a prompt. Make me a Facebook ad for my pizza shop or whatever. Make me a 15-second TikTok script to advertise my SaaS accounting platform. We're actually about to add an ability to just drop a URL and we'll go scrape that page for all the content and build a video from that. So the AI opened up doors for us. So I guess my takeaway learning lesson here would be, again, bumps in the road are going to cause some of the things that you maybe thought were your special sauce, your secret talent, your moat might get dissolved overnight. Moats are precious, but I don't have a good on the run metaphor here. If there's a flood, your moat's as good as everybody else's. Oh, that works, right?
Yeah, I like it. Not bad.
All right. Watch out for flooded moats, y'all. So the first thing we did was not be like, oh, what was us, but really look and respond. So one of the things we do, and if this is a good takeaway for anyone out there, we build playbooks. So if you think, football's the easy metaphor, but we as an executive team, our leadership team, my co-founders and I, once a quarter, we'll sit down and look at the quarter ahead and try to dream up everything we can think of, from worldwide scenarios like wars and technology changes, and what if TikTok gets banned? What if this, what if that? So we try to create scenarios that could affect us materially, right? Big deals, capital S scenarios, and write up playbooks like, okay, what would we want to do if that happened? And that's left us in a place as a company where I think candidly, we're very nimble. We're very easy to move with the changing times. And I think this is the second half that I don't want other founders to lose sight of. We're still sailing to a destination, right? If I think of my job so many ways is piloting the ship, even though we're building the ship and replacing the ship as we pilot it, right? It's the Argo. I'm still setting a vision. So when a massive thing changes, ChatGPT shows up, how does that affect our vision? And our vision was to solve video editing for business people. Well, ChatGPT just made some of that easier and some of that different. And so we adapted to it, but we're still solving for the same mission. Now, you might have to change your mission, but either way, responding to it, adapting to it, and figuring out where you're heading the ship to and how you're leveraging the change in your space. Don't give up, y'all. There's always a pivot. There's always a bump in the road.
That's great insight. And I would point listeners to one of our early episodes with the CEO of Aventry, which was a live meeting registration platform. and attendee communication platform. And he came into the job about 4 weeks before the pandemic. Live meetings sort of ended, and he had to retool the entire business to be focused only on online and then hybrid events. So from that terrible, like near death experience, actually grew the business significantly and had a great exit. So I think you're pointing to the same kind of thing. These externalities, you might never have planned for a pandemic doing these playbooks, but you might have had some of the elements you'd need for some major externality to like plan for it. So I think that's a great takeaway right there. I just want to circle back, as you're doing your product and company roadmap, take an hour and try and game plan 2 or 3 scenarios that you don't think are going to happen, but might have a big impact on you. Even if you're wrong, you'll be way ahead of others that have no playbook to base their plans on.
Absolutely. Adding a little nugget on this, we make negative playbooks like this. This could be devastating to us. What if YouTube makes video creation radically easier for everybody? What do we do, right? And the second one is good things. Hey guys, what happens if Mr. Beast uses our product and we don't know he's doing that, and then a video goes live about him using Augie and everybody's going to go try it, which Mr. Beast, if you're listening, please do that. What would it do to us? Are we ready for that? Right? So it's not just the negative stuff, it's the positive stuff that could send you in a tizzy. It basically killed, a lot of people would have heard of Friendster anymore, but the pre-MySpace, pre-Facebook, there was a thing called Friendster, and they weren't ready for their own success. And they'll tell you the server outages were devastating. So positive and negative playbooks.
I really appreciate that. I think we might have gotten our big nugget right there. So let's talk about, what is it actually like to engage with this piece of software or the suite of software? How do we go from, I'd like to have some video, to I have some video?
Sure. It's a great question. And I think we're still learning how to tell the story a bit, because when you haven't been doing a thing, it's not only not second nature, it's like a foreign language, right? I want you to think this way. All right, Ken, this is my goal for you and your listeners is, what if making video is as easy as writing an email to somebody, right? That's our goal. And I'm not saying we're there yet with the product, but that's what we keep in mind so that we understand what our job to be done here is, right? I literally want you to be able to come to Augie and say, I need a video preview for the SaaS Backwards podcast. Go. Like, that's our vision. What it does is this. We take your narrative. So let's start with that as a point. Your narrative comes from one of a few places. You've either recorded yourself, maybe on a webcam or with your phone. You have recorded audio, possibly with your phone, laptop, whatever, but you have a narration of some kind. If you don't have that, if you maybe don't like your voice, don't know where to start, etc., we also have an AI script writer. It uses ChatGPT-like functionality with a lot of prompt engineering. It's optional. If you already have a great blurb, use your blurb, read it out, have fun. So if you don't have, though, we'll write the script for you. And we actually have numerous types of script templates, because there's a big difference between making a thought leadership piece and an ad, for example, right? So we try to take that all in mind. We write a script for you. The next step is to voice that script. So again, you can record it. We have inline recording in Augie, or you can use our AI voices. We have over 100 AI voices of various dialects and sounds and ages and et cetera. Right now, all English. Will be expanding later in the year, but our AI voice will read your script for you. You can even clone your own voice by recording into Augie for about 45 seconds to a minute. The longer, the better. Once you have the AI voice, either way, we make a narration. Augie's magic, if you will, is to take that narration and use that to build your basis video. So what we do is we listen to everything said, and again, AI voice or human. We break it down automatically using the cadence of the speaker's voice. So if I say, hey, Ken, today I'm going to show you this huge demo. I'm really excited about the reaction to the product. I'm obviously just making this up. That would have detected those 3 intervals and automatically created a natural storyboard for each of those intervals. We call them shots. The last thing our AI does is analyze the words spoken in the shot, compare the context of the words overall. So is this a video about teaching me how to cook pizza, or is this a video about teaching me how to tie my shoes? I'm not always the best improver. So whatever the purpose of that video is, if it's, again, to advertise the podcast, you're going to want very different kind of content than if we're showing someone how pizza works. We have over 100 million clips, stock images, stock music from Getty and other sources, all with commercial licensing included. So if you use Augie, all of the video we default to, you can actually go use commercially. And we call it the rough cut. And the point of the rough cut is to try to show you, here's the overall tenor of this video. So if it's the podcast thing, then it's hopefully showed you a microphone at some point, or maybe someone going for a jog listening to a podcast, or etc. But the idea is that it should naturally take you through that. So maybe you're talking about your listeners are all young business entrepreneurs. And when it says that, maybe you've got a room full of entrepreneurs working and holding up their laptops or something. The point of the rough cut is to show you, here's a concept of this video. It's all using stock content, which obviously isn't the final video, but now you have a starting point. And if we think about what I was saying earlier, the hardest thing about making video is actually the blank canvas. We make sure our users never, ever have to deal with a blank canvas. Now, once you're done with that first rough cut, you could say, okay, well, we're going to put in the SaaS Backwards logo at the opening of this shot. I'm going to throw in some B-roll of me actually talking to the microphone at this part. And I'm going to show, we actually have this clip of people listening to our podcast in a roundtable session or whatever. So we're going to use that too. And so you can mix and match your own content and start removing the stock. But the cool thing is with Augie is that maybe you don't have all the stock you need. Maybe you want to show like, hey, listen to us in your car, on the commute, while you're running, or while you're cooking. Well, Ken, you're not going to go off and shoot B-roll of, I don't know, my wife cooking and your partner driving and my friend, at his office. No one's going to do that. So you already have the B-roll from Getty that lets you supplement that video so much. And the cool part about all of this is it works in a very simple point and click environment. There's almost no learning curve. We use your transcript to show you your own videos. So you can see the words and rearrange them, make changes to when the shot breaks are, add more, remove more. There's no crazy sets of rows of things that you have to like reinterpret. If I were doing this as an Augie and I were to show you what video editing looked like, you'd be like, I don't want to do that.
I gave up, even with the Apple tools, just beyond what my attention span allowed for.
Yeah, I mean, they're amazing software, but it's designed for like Christopher Nolan, not me and you, right? This is what they use to make Oppenheimer, not Jeremy's podcast 15-second trailer for TikTok.
Exactly. Well, I think that was a great explanation and a very evocative language. I think people could probably get the idea. I think you recently announced some expansion of the capability with Storyteller.
Storytellers are our newest feature. It's live in the product right now, so anyone hearing can try it. It is separate from our typical model. We are a freemium model. There's a free tier plus premium enterprise tiers, but we also charge individually for this. What Storyteller is, it's using generative video. So all of the rest of our product, by the way, uses AI, but very little of it is generative. We're not making images for you most of the time. We're using existing content. Well, we've also incorporated generative video. From our users' feedback, it's really not ready for commercial use at this point. It's really animated. It's very fun. It's very exciting. It is such a cool way to do storytelling, but it's not really for business use. It's more like your nighttime, bedtime story, things like that. Maybe for families, maybe for kids, maybe for loved ones. Really, a lot of people were using it to make like custom Valentine's Day videos. So the interesting thing about it, though, is the ability to weave in generative video into marketing programs. Right now, it's still pretty young, and most of the marketers we talk to, just because the AI world is, I'm not going to go with landmines, but there's definitely some concerns out there, whether around copyright and other use and artist rights, which, by the way, we are fully in support of. It's why we partnered with Getty. But Storyteller will let you bring a story to life and have some fun with it. We'll start adding the generative video capabilities into the core commercial product as the technology becomes really ready for prime time.
We've experimented, obviously, here with Dolly, trying to create imagery, and found that it's fanciful, but not productive use.
It's fun to see a blue kangaroo jumping over the moon while eating a carrot. And it's fun to then play with where that could go and make him into a steampunk kangaroo and have him take off and do this and do that. It's really, really neat. I don't know that it's doing much for my business, but it will, right? We know that.
I mean, that's the thing. I think where I want to land this little segment is this is a good opportunity to imagine how this might fit into your workflow 3, 6, 9, or 12 months from now. And if you're listening and you really care about changing how you do video in your organization, watch this, right?
If you're making video in order, your priority should be your own content, stuff you've recorded. It's always going to be the best, right? So if you're like a retail establishment, go walk around your store, take some footage, etc. What coming soon in Augie, by the way, is instead of auto selecting from your stock, we're going to auto select from your own library. And that can be hosted on Augie or in Dropbox. So if you actually have a video of you podcasting, when I said we would go find some stock image from Getty, instead, it'll just find your clip. So that's coming soon, is that our sort of Maslow hierarchy of video needs is the best footage is your own. The next best is stock that perfectly meets your need, right? If you want someone walking down Times Square, stock's great for that. And then the final one is where you need something that doesn't exist yet, right? If you need a specific type of person walking in a specific area, doing a specific activity, and that footage doesn't exist, that's where generative will really make up for the gap right now.
We have to keep watching this space, I think, for a little bit.
I think so.
Hey, Jeremy, thanks so much for being on the podcast. This was a fun episode to record. I think we learned some important things, gave us a few pearls for our listeners. If people want to learn more about Augie or reach out to you, how can they do that?
Just head over to meetaugie.com, meetaugie.com.
Great. And where can they find you on LinkedIn?
I'm Jeremy Toeman. I have a unique name. I'm fortunately and unfortunately very findable, and that's spelled with a toe and a man.
Excellent. Thank you. And if people want to reach me, I'm on LinkedIn/in/Ken Lempit. If you haven't subscribed to the podcast, please do so wherever you get your podcasts. Also would appreciate ratings if you enjoy the episodes. And my company is Austin Lawrence Group. We're a demand generation agency for SaaS. The SaaS Backwards podcast is a service to the SaaS community. Jeremy Toeman, thanks so much for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having me here. It was a great convo.
Thanks for listening to the SaaS Backwards podcast, brought to you by Austin Lawrence Group. We're a growth marketing agency that helps SaaS firms reduce churn, accelerate sales, and generate demand. Learn more about us at www.austinlawrence.com. You can email Ken Lempit at kl@austinlawrence.com about any SaaS marketing or customer retention subject. We hope you'll subscribe, and thanks again for listening.